The tower of Gordium stood menacingly in the distance as the Ashkenazi soldiers lowered themselves into the ship's boats in order to row themselves to shore. The forces of the Phrygians were still scrambling. They were hardly organized into disciplined, organized units yet, but they were not going to make the landing easy as the black arrows began to fill the skies, striking against the high wooden sides of the lifeboats. Huge, sturdy ramps were dropped over the side of the ships, leading out to the shallows. Then, with loud cries of "Menagir l'Imperatori!" rang through the air, "For the Emperor," in the tongue of the Tamarines. As the horsemen charged forth, rumbling down the ramps, charging towards the clusters of loosely organized Phrygians, the hooves of their steeds churning the shallow water as they burst forth from the confines of the ships to ride and fight on dry land once again. A few were brought low by the black arrows, but their charge was fierce and unbroken. Phanuel, the golem himself, took a running leap from his vessel into the shallows, landing with a force so powerful that a pillar of water sprayed around him, knocking back the arrows of the Phrygians out of the air. With his chainsword roaring for blood, Phanuel charged towards the heretics, matching the speed of the Tamarines' horses. The lightly armored skirmishers were already panicking as they were run down by the Space Marine and the thundering Desert Horsemen. Al-Rashid and his men cut down the fleeing Phrygians as they attempted to secure a beachhead and limit the number of arrows flying at the musketmen paddling their way to shore. The Space Marine was a whirlwind of death, carving his way through the Slaneshi cultists that ran before him. It wasn't long before the light resistance was completely routed, the heretics scattering before him. But as the skirmishers fled, Phanuel did not continue his pursuit. They needed to secure the beachhead and get the musketeers to shore, and he did not want the Tamarine or himself to become overextended.
Al-Rashid, we need to secure the landing for the Ashkenazi. Can you hold the three main roads leading to the docks?
Horsemen do not hold. We do not dig our feet in and stay put. We drive our enemies before us. We cannot hold the main roads, but we can slow down the advance of the accursed ones. We will take care of the east and west thoroughfares. You, brave golem, blessed son of the Emperor, I anticipate that you will be able to hold the northern way on your own. Blessings upon you." With that, Al-Rashid began barking orders to his men as they wheeled around the main square of Gordium. They sheathed their scimitars and drew forth their mighty bows. Phanuel had heard stories of the mounted archers of the desert, but he had never seen them in action. He was reminded of the many Rough Rider units in the Imperial Guard. But these men held themselves so steady as they guided their horses with their knees and fired harrying volleys. Phanuel now stood alone at the northern causeway, daring the heretics to approach him. Suddenly, he could see them coming. There were blocks of heavily armed soldiers marching through the streets, much more organized, and by the look of them, much more deeply corrupted than the lowly militia they had faced earlier. They drove forth strange, twisted creatures with accursed whips and occasional sparks of sick, pinkish-purple energy drawn from the warp. Some fell sorcerer drove these forsaken creatures that the golem guessed were once men. Now they were shambling abominations bereft of anything resembling human anatomy. They crawled and slithered on twisted appendages. Legs and claws and tentacles propelled them forward as drooling maws of broken, jagged teeth screeched in pain and rage. Fanuel had seen the like of these creatures before. Punishments to those who fell out of favor with the ruinous powers. Or perhaps their twisted minds considered this some kind of blessing. The advance of these creatures was slow, and the Temerines did their work, firing their arrows and retreating, sometimes managing to pierce the thick, corrupted flesh of these horrors, sending dribbling lines of black blood running down their sides. Fanuel counted a half-dozen creatures being driven towards him. He drew forth his holy bolter for the first time. If he simply dove in with his chainsword, it was possible that these monstrosities would overwhelm him, and the battle for Gordium would turn into a disaster before they could even set foot in the Dark Tower. He only had a limited number of shots, but he would see the Emperor's wrath fall upon these heretics. Abaya watched the battle from the shoreline as he paddled as hard as he could. He watched Fanuel stand alone against the advancing army. The golem had stood tall against every enemy he had faced with shocking ease. But against these shambling monsters, Abaya gave the order to the rest of the men to keep paddling as he drew forth his rifle and took careful aim. No, the golem would not stand alone. So long as the Emperor guided his aim, the golem would not stand alone. No man do they call me, my mother and my father, and all my comrades as well. Thank you all for listening to the latest episode in the Heart of Iron series. If you enjoyed what you heard, please leave a like and a comment so that one day you too might be a cyborg super soldier hacking through hordes of debaucherous degenerate heretics. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so in order to hear more stories about robot marines fighting naughty marines. If you would like to support me, you can do so via Patreon or PayPal or my merch store, which are all linked in the description below. And if you have absolutely no idea what's going on, you can click on the Heart of Iron playlist to listen to the story series from the beginning, and that should be appearing on screen right about now. Thank you all once again for listening. No Man, out.